So the first thing I want to do is remove the valve stem core. And I have a valve stem core puller here. Hopefully you can see this is going into the stem and twisting out the core. This lets all the air out. And I spray some WD-40 around the rim just to get it a little bit loose. Okay. I'll start breaking the bead, and I have the tire up on these pieces of wood. It's not really necessary when you have a drum brake, but when you have disc brakes, it is very necessary because you don't want to damage it. Okay, so I'm going to put this bar, the flat bar of the Bead Pro breaker, underneath as much of the rim as I can. And then that really just broke the bead. That was pretty easy. It's not always that easy. If you have to use the second part, you just push that in and push down. And do that the entire way around the rim just to make sure the bead is broken. So it looks like it's pretty simple on this one. And you can move around the tire if you have to with your knees and push down. Also, I wear knee pads all the time. So now you can tell the bead is broken completely now on this side. So now I will flip the wheel over and break the bead on the other side. Same procedure, flat side of the Bead Pro underneath. First, as much of the rim as you can get, stick the second part inside and push down and squeeze them together, push down. You heard the bead break there, so we'll just go around and do that the rest of the way. Okay, I didn't even need the second piece there. And I'm getting up on my knees just to make sure it's completely broken. And you can see that it is around the entire rim. Okay, we're back at it, removing the tube from the tire. I have two nuts on my tube. Just one recommendation of how to put the nuts on. You make sure you have a little gap between the rim and the valve stem, and then tighten one nut against the other in case there's any movement of the tube while riding. You have a little bit of flexibility. So I'm taking the nuts off. Okay. Now, reaching down and pushing valve stem into the tube, into the tire. And now I'm going to pull the bead, the tire bead up so I can get the tube out. So what I'm now doing is I'm going to make sure my knees are pressed into so that the tire bead is in the center of the rim trough here. So you want to make sure that that's in the center the entire time you're using a tire iron. so you can pull the tire out over the rim. And you move around the tire as you go. Reach underneath the rim to get the bead. Take small bites first. Make sure that I'm keeping my knee the opposite of where my tire irons are. So I keep that bead inside the trough as much as possible. Okay, see. Now I can remove my tube. Reach in here, it's pretty tight, and push the valve stem in and pull the tube out. Not sure what that squealing noise is. Oh, that's the air coming in the tube, okay. Okay, now we got one bead off the one side of the rim and the tube out. We're going to get the other side of the tire off the rim. And this is the most difficult part. That's why I took my flannel shirt off, because sometimes you work up a sweat doing this. The trick to this is you really have to make sure that this bead on this side, where I'm kicking, is inside the deepest part of the trough of the rim. That is really the trick to this, because otherwise you will really struggle to get this bead off the other side of the rim. So you want to take a nice big long tire iron, and these Motion Pro, the curved one, is really nice for this part of the job. And you want to get it underneath the opposite side of the rim and catch the lip on the opposite side, and you're going to push the tire as much as you can. And again, making sure that I'm using my foot to kind of keep this tire inside the trough of the rim on the bottom. That is really the secret to this. And then I'm going to use my other tire iron to get the tire off the rim as I'm pushing down at the bottom. So you have to kind of move, you have to move one along, keep this under, and keep it going until it pops off. I'm still pushing underneath the bottom and pushing down. And you can use your arms and everything else and just keep pushing down on that tire. And again, my foot is underneath, pushing down, making sure the bead is in the trough of the rim. That is the key. So you can see how it's coming off. I'm using my other knee as well, and I'm pushing with my hands. Whatever it takes. There we go. Look at that. That was probably the best one I've done, believe it or not. And if you don't keep that bead inside the trough at the bottom, it is a struggling nightmare. So please make sure you do that. Okay, now I'm going to remove the rim strip, the old rim strip. Of course, you only need these on spoke wheels. And clean up the rim a bit, whatever cleaner you like. Got some rust on it, so just use a little kerosene and then a brass wire brush just to clean up some of the rust. Just get the major stuff off. If you start at the valve stem, you'll know where you ended up. Right here's the valve stem hole. Clean that up. Just helps the bead seal on the rim too. I mean, with tube tires it's not as critical, but it's good to get as much seal as you can on the rim. So I'm just going to wipe that up. Stick that. Okay. Make sure there's no pointy valve pieces here as you're rubbing. Just kind of inspect these. I'm sorry, the spoke nipples. Just make sure there's nothing sticking up pointy. That's what the rim strip is for, but you know, if you have any pointy bits, you can always grind them down with a Dremel tool. Okay. That looks pretty good. Okay, now I'm going to put the rim strip on, the new rim strip. I got this wider one. I'm going to try this out and see how it works. I do have a thinner one just in case. So we'll find the valve stem hole. Again, right here. See that? Okay, well, I'll just stick that on, make sure the hole lines up. We could even stick a screwdriver in there if you need to. Just keep it on. We'll see how we do without it. So it looks pretty good. So just make sure the valve stem hole is lined up with the rim strip, and we'll make sure we're pretty centered on the rim itself the whole way around. Okay. Yeah, the thick one's pretty nice. Okay. Now what we're going to do is place the tube inside the tire. So make sure you have the right tube first. Yeah, let's see. Here we go. I'm not sure that's good. You can see the 375, 400, 425, 18. So that matches 418, so it falls in the range. Make sure you have the right size tube first, and if you have a tire that has a red dot on it anywhere on the tire, either side, then you want to line up the valve onto that red dot, because that is the lightest part of the tire. Some tires don't have them because they don't do that, and this is the case. So the first thing we want to do is put the tube inside the tire. That is sometimes a challenge. So what someone told me was to fill up the tube about halfway. Okay. Yeah, halfway to 3/4. And you're basically, and make sure, you know, if you do have a red dot, make sure you line that up, just in case we do not have one. So what you want to do is use your chest to lean down on the tire and and push on it. I'm pushing on with my chest here, so as you can see, that widens up the tire beads, so I can stick my tube inside, fish it in as I go. And I'm going to move the tire around and keep stuffing the tube inside as I widen the distance of the bead. So I'm moving the tire, put my chest on it, stick it inside. And again, if you have a red dot, you have to be mindful of that. What the step is. Okay. Now, almost done. I'm trying to get an angle on this so you can see. Okay. And it's in. So now the tube is inside the tire. Getting ready to put the one side of the rim on and stick the valve stem through. So I'm going to lube up the bead a little bit just to make that part a little easier. And I have tire lube. That's what I use. Some people use soap and water. This stuff's pretty nice, but it is a mess. I'll make sure I get that bead nice and lubed up, and make sure I remove the nuts that are on the valve stem. There's a little washer behind that. Make sure that stays on, because that's what rides up against the rim. You do not want these nuts up against the inside of the rim. So remove this first. Okay. And this valve stem removal tool comes in handy for this job. You need to stick the rim. Oh, another thing about directional tires. If you have a directional tire that has an arrow pointing one way or the other, this one does not. Make sure. There's now no arrows on this tire. And we're going to double check. If you do have an arrow on the tire, make sure you're going in the correct direction of the wheel. This would be the right side, and your arrow is pointing that way. So make sure that that's correct before you do any of this, or you'll be redoing it. Okay, so we'll find the valve stem hole right here and stick the fishing tool through here. Get my valve stem and the tire lined up first. Just on the side. Okay, so that goes back to the boards. Sticking this through. And I have to remove the core to do this. So this will take the air out. Save this off to the side. And then we will screw this removal tool inside the valve stem and push this rim on as we're pulling the valve stem through the hole. See?
Just take your tube, just like that. See how easy that is? Well, on a side valve, I've used it a couple times. Now you just let that loose on it, it can come back through. Now I take it, set it up, push the tube back in, give me your tire on, Give me one of them. I don't care which one. Yeah, don't run that on.
Well, I like the big one.
Give me the hook one.
You want the big one?
Yeah, that's good.
I like that one for doing this stuff.
Now, see what you got? What you got to do is put one side on.
We're going to fill up the tire about halfway. So I have to put the valve core back in. Okay. So if I fill it up halfway, it'll be expanded inside the tire. So when I'm putting the tire irons on to put the other side of the rim on, there's less of a chance of pinching the tire. So we're just going to fill it up a little bit. It's hard to tell what halfway is when it's inside, but I can feel it. It has some air in it. That's good. Okay, so now I'm going to bead up this side. I'm going to lube it up with some of the lube. This is to help get the bead on the rim and to help it seal against the rim as well. The other side's still lubed up before. Okay. So now we're going to start putting this side of the bead onto the rim. So just be careful. Just be careful to make sure you have this lip of the tire iron just on the rim, but not on the tube. That's the secret. So keep it. You can kind of take very tiny bites as you start. So see how small of a bite I'm taking. I'm going around. And now I'm going to get my knees involved. So I'm going to get up on my knees. And wherever I can get a little bite, I'm just going to use this. Again, make sure you got the lip on the rim only, not on the tube. So I'm going to go around. Wherever I can get a tiny bite. I'm just going to keep my knees on to keep it down. You can use 2 tire irons at a time if you like. Keep the one in. And make sure you're just on the rim only. And as you get closer, the tinier bites you're going to take. Okay. So it's probably easier to do this one at a time and keep the other one in. I'm feeling just the rim. Just the rim only. Putting my finger on so I can feel it's just on the rim. Okay. Okay. Okay, here we go. And now we're getting tinier and tinier bites. I might be blocking the view pretty soon. So I'm coming around. Might be blocked. Well, no, that should be good. Okay, just making sure I'm only on the rim. And again, you're keeping your knees to keep this bead inside the trough to make it easier. So you want to be opposite of where you're putting the tire irons. Okay. tiny bite wherever it fits in. Actually, I can push it with my hand. Okay. Okay, there you go. Now, next step is to put we're going to put some air in it. And the best way to do this is make sure there's nothing in here. Make sure it's pretty clear around the rim because it's going to bead on here. And best way to get a good seal is to take the valve stem core back out so you can get as much pressure inside the tire as possible. And we're going to change out the nozzle for the air compressor. So now we're back. I put this nozzle on that does not have a typical valve stem nozzle, so because I'm going to remove the core again. And this is just to get the tire to seat against the rim. And if it doesn't seat with a tube tire, that's okay. I mean, we just try to do it first. With a tubeless, it's obviously has to seat, but we give it a shot first with this valve. We're going to fill it up if I can. So there's not much room here, but we're going to fill it up and make sure that the seat comes out. And the compressor might come on at some point, so I'm just going to bounce it around until it did not seat, so I'm going to put the core back in, make sure it's clean, and fill it up to about 60 pounds. And do the same thing. This time I'm going to pick up the tire, put on the new nozzle, and fill it up to about 60 pounds. So I'm going to adjust my we have 80 pounds in there, so I should be good. I'm going to pick it up. And then we're going to go for it. $50 or 60 pounds just to get it seat up against the rim. And we'll check how many pounds we have in there. Just make sure it's seated up against the rim as much as possible. If you feel this, you can kind of feel if there's any kind of abnormality. It feels pretty good. And now we're off the balancing. I have the Tusk balancer. You can choose your own. Make sure the balancer is actually level with the little level circle. I'm going to put in the Marc Parnes. I have the Tusk balancing, but I adapted it to the Marc Parnes balancer. I put these pieces of metal on top to have the Marc Parnes balancer bearings to sit on top. It's a little precarious, so you have to watch, watch what's going on when you're putting the wheel up. And these are the adapters. And I'm going to center them as much as I can. And what you want to make sure that the thumb screws are opposite each other when you tighten them. Make sure they're very tight inside the hub. Again, they're opposite, making sure they're opposite each other so the weight balances itself out. And now I'm going to put the ends on and stick it up on top very carefully. Okay. Making sure I keep it on. Centers of the axles inside. It's flat and flush to the surface. Like I said, I adapted this so it's not the greatest, but it works. So now we have, again, we have these thumb screws are opposite each other. See this on this. Turn it just a bit. Make sure they're tight. Okay, now we have the balancer all set up. These cones are inside as tight as I can get them with my hands. So now we're going to find, get this roller out of the way. I'm going to find the balance point. So I'm just going to rock it about 45 degrees and let it settle down. And wherever it settles is where I'm going to mark the top of the tire, and that will be the lightest portion of the tire. So that's where we want to apply the weights in the end. I'll get on this side too so we can kind of see a little better. So again, I'm going to mark the top once it settles down. We'll let it settle down and I'll come back. So it settled down, and I hope you can see this, the mark is straight up and down in a line. After it settled down, I made sure it's the same on both sides. Looking at this, coming around here. So I'm just gonna put some more marks on here just to make sure I see that going across. Okay. So right here is where we want to put the weights on to balance it out. Now, so we want to start by putting some weights on the spokes that are the closest to that mark. So that will bring the tire down when I keep moving the tire, and eventually when it sticks in one point is basically when you have the right amount of weights on that area. So I'm going to apply the weights to one of the spokes that's closest to that mark, which is right here. You can see this. It's right, that would be the one that I really want to focus on. So I will temporarily put a weight on. And what's nice about these is you can put them on and take them off, and you don't have to worry about the sticky parts of them with spokes. So it's an advantage of spokes, spoked wheels. So I'm going to put a weight, a pretty heavy weight on here just to see what this does. Right here. And you can see the indent here fits on the nipple, if you can see that inside the weight itself. Once I get it on the nipple, I can tighten it. Okay, so we're going to see what that does. And see if it doesn't stick, if it keeps going up, then it's not enough weight. If it goes to a different spot and stays there, that might be the right amount of weight. And so if it comes back to the top, then it's not enough. Oh, I might have gotten pretty lucky here. This might be the only weight that I need on that particular spoke. So I think I'm going to go with that. I'm going to try to turn it one more time on the other side. And now that's staying in spot. So it's a balanced wheel. It's not going to the bottom or the top. It's staying pretty much where I placed my hand. So that was just luck. Otherwise you have to get some other weights. If you need more weights, you would add them right around that area. You know, you can get different size weights. With this kit, it has multi sizes, and you just get it close enough where it does what I just showed you. So lucky day for me. That was just the amount of weight needed to balance out this wheel.